Hello, thank you for joining us today on this webinar around an exciting new solution that Forcepoint has introduced, Data Detection and Response, or otherwise called DDR. We're going to be talking about how you can safeguard your data specifically with this type of solution, and what it specifically brings to your overall data security approach. Today, I have joining me Jamin Hoops. He's the Vice President of Product Management for our Data Security Solutions. I'm a Principal Product Marketing Manager here at Forcepoint. And I also have Toby Dixon, who will be doing a demonstration of the product. He's a Senior Technical Marketing Engineer for data security as well. So the first thing I want to do is go to a question to Jamin on just the overall market and overall environment that we're facing today around data breaches. The question is, how are data breaches changing in 2025? And what do organizations need to be considering?
Yeah, great question, Kevin. So what we're seeing with our customer base is a huge adoption of Gen AI tools, and that's opening up a huge risk space for our customers. When they're leveraging Gen AI, any protections that they might have had around the data entering the Gen AI tool sets, those protections are gone, and they're scared of who can then query that data or how that data might be manipulated or misused. So that did start in 2024 and is continuing aggressively into 2025 as well. Especially as organizations are seeking to leverage Gen AI to be more efficient across the different functional units. All those functional units are looking at the Gen AI tools and finding ways to be efficient and be more productive within their functional organizations.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're saying that because there is a number of different things, right? As far as with Gen AI, it's not just Gen AI as far as how do we protect data leaving into a Gen AI tool. There's the things about Gen AI in terms of regulations. There's things as far as Gen AI improving the ability of hackers to be able to get in and accomplish a data breach. And so there's all these different things coming together with Gen AI.
Yeah, absolutely. The hackers, like you were saying, they're using Gen AI tools to be more efficient and quicker, creating malware without having to write code. They're just using prompting to do that now as well. Regulations coming on top of that quite heavily out of Ireland. They're talking about blocking facial recognition using AI within the country and the side effects that's having. But regulations are being debated actively, and regulations being enforced throughout the world now because of the shift to Gen AI and the potential it has, but also the risk it has is
Right.
top of mind for the security practitioners.
Right. What about as far as around the data breaches themselves? As far as what's been happening and what do you think is going to continue to happen in terms of 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, this report we're showing here, from the IBM, does show the averages, and we're showing it broken out by the countries, the average cost of a data breach. From our own information that we have with our customers, it does line up very nicely to these same numbers. But on average, when a breach happens, about $4.8 million, and it takes a long time to detect that breach. Up to 258 days, according to this study. So very risky, very costly for customers when they are breached, and takes a long time to even identify and contain a breach. So what we're doing at Forcepoint is taking this market problem and trying to reduce the cost and reduce the time to identify breaches, or ideally avoid them up front.
Great. Yeah, especially that aspect. I think about there is a bank that was in Australia. I think it was like 6 months before they actually recognized they had the data breach, and it's that lack of visibility into what's going on specifically with data is just a huge gap for many companies.
And that's why it takes so long to identify sometimes. You just don't know, you're not monitoring the right thing, and somehow you discover it. Either you're told by the hacker, or internally you've found the glaring hole in your security, and I see, oh, yep, somebody's been in there for about a year. So
Yeah,
it's a big risk.
it's big. So, Jamin, how is it that ForcePoint specifically deals with this aspect of DDR? How do we provide DDR to customers?
Yeah, great question. DDR for us is an add-on to our DSPM offering. So our DSPM connects to data sources in the cloud or on-prem, does scheduled scans, classifying data and giving you a nice inventory of where your data is. It's a great compliance tool and risk assessment tool. Our DDR is built on top of that, and we're selling that as an add-on today. That add-on is continuously monitoring data in use. So as files are being modified or created, always monitoring those actions and giving you that the telemetry in a very timely manner, so you can be proactive in that security, not having to wait for a scheduled scan. Still giving you very valuable risk assessments, still using the AI and ML classification models that the DSPM is using. All of that is the same. But now you have something that's very timely to triage your incidents and alerts with.
Great. One other question, how is DDR distinct, ForcePoint DDR, versus our other products in data security, particularly our data loss prevention product and also Forcepoint DSPM in itself? What are you seeing as far as the distinctions?
Yeah, DDR is very distinct. It's part of the data security life cycle, the way we view it here. But we view data in three different states: data at rest, data in motion, and data in use. DSPM is going to be more of the data at rest use case. Our DLP covering the data in motion. It's egressing, and DDR is that data in use aspect. So all of them hand in hand, covering the different states that data can exist in your environment.
Great. And across this data security lifecycle that we've talked about in the past in other webinars, we want to make sure we cover all of these bases. We think these are all important for our customers to be able to have a holistic approach to securing their data. Here's this one slide that does kind of go into detail as far as some of the distinctions. Can you maybe talk to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to expand a little bit on what I was saying on the different states of data existence. So data in use, that's what we're talking about here. The DDR continuously monitoring those data repositories, so you have something very timely to do your alert triage and remediations. No need to wait for a scheduled scan like the data at rest on the left-hand side with our DSPM full scanning. Those are scheduled scans, and no need to wait for those scans to finish and rerun a scan, because data may have been modified in the meantime. Data is always changing in your environment. And then data in motion, we have our DLP, and that exists on several channels: our email channel, our endpoint channel, our CASB, our web, our SWG. So as data is moving through your organization on any of the channels, we have good protection there. All of these together, though, like I was saying, and we showed on the data security lifecycle, go hand in hand in giving you the most comprehensive data security.
Yeah, it's a very powerful combination for security. One other question, how does your DDR enhance DSPM? You've mentioned a couple of times the way we're bringing it to the market, DDR is an add-on for DSPM, but how do those specifically complement each other, and particularly DDR enhancing DSPM itself?
Yeah, highly complementary use cases, like I was saying, but it does take the need away from waiting for a scan to complete. And you're actually looking at active data in your environment. So if you just set up the DDR component without waiting for scans, in a very timely manner, you're going to have those incidents and alerts flowing right into your dashboards. You're going to see the riskiest data going on, what users are doing, and have that remediation abilities in a very timely manner. without having to wait for those scans to come around and tell you, hey, something's changed and here's what it is. It also allows you to change your policy right now, and not have to wait for a scan to say I've added a new PII classifier or an intellectual property classifier. You don't have to wait again in that with that continuously monitoring aspect of DDR. Those new policies are active and live, and incidents flowing to your dashboards.
Okay, great. One of the things I think that's an important point you brought up a couple times too. DDR is particularly focused on data that's being touched or used. So like DSPM looks at the entire landscape of all of your data, and it doesn't have to be moving. So particularly around rot, for example, you wouldn't know when something goes obsolete, typically with DDR, because of it's not being touched necessarily. It could be touched, and you can see that it's obsolete, and then it could be marked, but in general, that's not where it's going to happen. Whereas with DDR, wherever it's touched, data is touched, it gets scanned, it's classified, and that can update your overall security posture, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good. One other question. Can you provide examples of real world scenarios where DDR solution could detect and mitigate threats?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple jump to mind right away that we have run across. The first one I call like a multi-user share, where you're all collaborating. This is something I do all the time, every day with my team, and we're collaborating on a PowerPoint or in a spreadsheet or in a Word document on a regular basis. We're all adding content to it, and sometimes we might need to invite a partner outside the company to collaborate with us. So with DDR, you need to make sure the right amount of data is being shared from one employee to the other and from employees to partners. And DDR is what is doing that continuous monitoring, making sure that the right data is being shared in real time. Another one is overexposing data, maybe by a malicious insider, say a leaver. Leavers are the number one type of people that take data as they leave an organization and go to the next job. They're trying to take data they created. They feel it's theirs. They put enough time, sweat, and tears into it, and it's going to be valued to them in their career. So they might want to take it with them. If you have really good security controls, they won't be able to copy to USB or upload to their Gmail. But there's loopholes, and one loophole is they create a Word document, and let's say you are running your scans, and it's not classified, and it's publicly shared. That's fine. There's nothing in there, so go ahead and allow that to be publicly shared. This user might then move in sensitive data into that document, start copying, pasting in work they've done over the years. Without a DDR doing continuous monitoring, you won't know that until the next scan comes around, and they could go home and download that file. So there's a couple of real world scenarios that will close that off. And the whole intent of DDR is provide that continuous monitoring, provide those risk assessments. So in a very timely manner, you have those incidents in your dashboards. You can do those remediations right away before there is any data stolen.
Right. That'd be an important one. They're both important use cases, but I'm thinking that particularly an insider, someone who's gained access, they can go in there, market anyone with this link, and completely go outside the organization and have access. And they could do it with a lot of documents. And it's like this would be an excellent solution to be able to give visibility into that problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, next we're going to have Toby Dixon. He'll be doing a demo of Forcepoint DDR. Toby, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you very much, Kevin. Let's talk about DDR. We're going to take a look at the DDR live events, the streaming events, and this is continuous monitoring of standard streaming events. It shows the combination of actions and file details, file elements, as well as user elements. We're looking at the DDR overview. Within the DDR overview, streaming events, it overviews what continuous monitoring of data sources. And this can include metrics such as actions per hour, types of events, as well as recently scanned files and exposed files, which may present risk by public sharing or oversharing. Forcepoint DDR gives the administrators the ability to help mitigate that risk. Let's view. Drilling down into files with recent changes, inside the enterprise search, admins can quickly identify potential risk factors for breach by reviewing file lineage. DDR file lineage can offer different views into the number of unique users, movements, and download events, as well as share events. In addition to permissions, who has access to this data outside of the organization? Anyone with the link and other possible external users, as well as the data assets or the duplicate data that may have to be addressed across all platforms. With the sensitivity and the high risk of the data being shared outside of the organization, admins also have the ability to remediate the issue by either revoking permissions or moving that data. Revoking permissions can easily be done by removing anyone with the link or actually removing the permissions in which someone can modify that data. Let's go ahead and remove anyone with the link. Administrators also have the ability of moving the data to a secure location. Administrators are not limited to moving data into a secure location on that specific data source. As long as administrators have rights, read rights, and write rights to a different location and a different data source, administrators can move data to a quarantine location in a separate data source. Forcepoint DDR provides predefined data controls that can easily import into DSPM controls for orchestration. These DDR controls can cover items such as public exposure of PII, PHI data, external sharing, and even overshare internally. Controls, once imported, our admins can tailor or create specific DDR controls for the organization's needs. For example, exposed sharing of PII data. This is a control or an issue that can be damaging for any organization. This is why creating controls around exposed PII to notify admins or incident response teams are critical to the organization. DSPM scans data repositories from time to time. If something happens with access to sensitive data in between those scans, the continuous monitoring of DDR is how organizations will identify possible breaches. By leveraging notifications within DDR data controls, changes regarding sensitive data can be sent via email or even webhooks or Slack to incident response teams for quick remediation to stop data exposure that may not have been discovered for some time. They also generate incidents in which admins can see a quick dashboard of externally exposed or shared data, and then come over to remediate directly from the UI, whether it's going to be removing permissions or moving a file. Within analytics, Forcepoint DDR offers additional data sets specific to DDR data or continuous data streaming. Admins can add specific widgets for datasets outside of the DSPM datasets, including streaming, file audit log, and extended streaming, which are specific to the continuous monitoring of DDR. As a result, admins can create widgets and dashboards that can give them up-to-the-minute information on the continuous monitoring of their data sources.
Well, thanks, Toby. That was great. A really good illustration of what's going on with this new product, and good gave you an opportunity to be able to see the user interface and what we're able to do in stopping data breaches. Okay, now we're going to go to just a few questions that have come up around this product, and we want to make sure we answer them for all of you that are watching this webinar. The first question is, how does Forcepoint DDR's data lineage tracking improve incident investigation and remediation?
I'll go ahead and take that. So Kevin, the fellow lineage is a great way of actually looking at the kind of blast radius or the life cycle of the entire data to kind of get an idea of what data was exposed for the organization and where they may have to take that as far as stopping a data breach or mitigating any further exposure.
Great, thanks. Another question we have is, what are the main differences between Forcepoint DDR and other data detection and response solutions that are in the market? Jamin, maybe you can answer this.
Yeah, so our DDR is very unique and very, very powerful in that it integrates completely into our data security lifecycle that I was just talking about. So our integration with our award-winning DLP. So you got to classify that data, discover that data, tag that data, and our DLP for doing the protections on all those channels. From a single vendor, there's nobody else doing that out there. And we have our DSPM, our DDR, and our DLP solutions working hand in hand to do that. Additionally, the AI classification aspects. I mean, we have a great AI mesh that uses bag of words and filters evaluators, LLM technologies, deep neural network classifiers, and Bayesian network inferences. All of this giving us high fidelity on the classifications so that you have as few false positives as possible. I mean, we have some accounts that couldn't go blocking on their intellectual property because of the false positives that were generated from regular expressions. With this tool, they're able to get those down to zero and get into a blocking mode. So this DDR is very powerful because it's part of the ecosystem and the AI mesh that it's foundational to it.
Yeah, that's great. The AI mesh in particular is just so many companies just say AI powered, and they really don't have an explanation of what is actually happening. And the AI mesh gives you a very detailed explanation of a lot of interesting things that are done to be able to get that high fidelity you were just talking about. Here's another question for you, Jamin. What are the steps involved in deploying Forcepoint DDR, and how quickly can organizations expect to see results?
Yeah, we have a very flexible deployment model. Our customers can choose. We have our SaaS version. So for those customers who don't want to host infrastructure on-prem, that can get up and running very, very quickly. After that, you configure your connectors to the data repositories and set your policies. Within minutes after you're configured, you'll have those incidents flowing back to the dashboard and not having to do very, very much. It's very timely setup if you go the SaaS route. We also have our on-prem deployment model. That model you'll deploy and manage the infrastructure yourself. That adds to the deployment time a little bit, but there's definitely customers with regulations. They have to keep things on-prem or within their own control. So we have both available to our customers. Whichever deployment model suits them best, we have a solution for them.
That's great. Of course, this is an add-on, like you mentioned before, to our Forcepoint DSPM. They'll have to deploy the DSPM first. But once they've done that, you really fast time to value in terms of what the DDR component brings to the customer.
That's correct. For our existing DSPM customers, this is just a license and it is turned on. Even simpler.
That's great. Okay, one last question. Can Forcepoint DDR, and this is for Toby, can Forcepoint DDR be customized to fit the specific needs and policies of an organization?
Oh, absolutely, Kevin. It's very possible to tailor to customer needs or even create new data controls and notifications for customized data compliance, et cetera. So as an example, customers may have a specific data repository that houses all of their PII data, as an example, and it's supposed to live right there. But if it's moved or downloaded, that could potentially open up a exposure or a breach. And by leveraging the notifications, to incident response groups, emails, et cetera, and data controls that are customized and for every need, this could be pretty critical for identifying possible data breaches. And when that data is touched, when that data is moved from one repository to the other, this is where DDR's continuous monitoring will be able to aid and assist in that mitigation of any exposure or breach.
That's great. And particularly this whole the custom aspect, because every organization has different things that they're doing in terms of where they want data to reside, where they do not want data to reside. And you can do that within our product. You can create custom policies to address that so that you're able to see that.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, thank you, Jamin and Toby, for your time today. And we appreciate all of you that watching this webinar right now, and want to just give you some next steps as far as for more additional information. Please visit these websites, forcepoint.com/DDR for, of course, for this DDR solution. We also have /DSPM and /DLP, so you can learn more about those products and get a better idea. Also, please feel free, you can directly on those websites, you can request for an expert, and you can actually schedule the call with them within the website and be able to talk with someone from Forcepoint, and they'll be happy to take you through as far as what your specific needs are around data security and how these solutions can help you to develop a holistic security plan. Thanks.